again. This is our third day of DecisionCAMP, and our first presenter today is Stefaan Lambrecht. And you're already familiar with him from yesterday, for example, a panel of experts. And Stefan is really expert in this area, but he, as he points this himself, he positions himself as a visionary outsider. And his interest always was between business and IT. And but telling this, I always can see that he provides very, very specific answers to decision automation questions. And he works as a consultant for government and for commercial companies, and has a big, extensive experience in this area. And today he's going to share with us his experience in insurance claim processing, and this is one of the most popular use of decision intelligence technologies. And looking forward to your presentation, Stefan.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, Jacob. Yeah, what I would like to share with you over the coming 3/4 of an hour is an approach or a framework that I developed very recently to build the support and the management of customer service, operational customer service, from a decision-centric point of view. And I applied this to insurance claim handling, end-to-end, so that with the standards that we are talking about also during DecisionCAMP, DMN and BPMN and CMMN, and also data modeling using SDMN, where they are all used together to build, in fact, a fully operational support of this kind of customer services. I'm not at all an IT developer, but by using these different standards, and I will show it also, I'm not going to show only slides, but I'm going to show it in a modeling environment, a Trisoltech modeling environment. By modeling the logic of the process case and decisions that are taken in the framework of insurance claim handling, I built, in fact, a framework that can easily be implemented within every insurance company for whatever type of claim handling they would need to support. Yes. So if we're talking about claim handling, there are a number of challenges. So what I'm first going to do is set a little bit the scene of what insurance claim handling is about and the challenges that you face when you try to automate it or when you try to support it using an IT environment. And then we'll dive into how we solve that using the standards that we have. The first thing to notice about insurance claim handling is it is one of the most complex types of customer services or of processes that you can automate, because in fact it serves a lot of different purposes which you all have to handle, and the content of them changes all the time. So it's not really sequence driven. It's really event driven. Yeah, and a number of things that need to be handled when you handle whatever claim is, the first thing is eligibility, and there I put important to fail fast, because in fact when you receive a claim as an insurance company, the first thing you want to do is to verify whether the one or the person that handed in the claim was entitled to do so. So does he have a contract with our insurance company? Is that contract covering what the claim is about? The objects that are damaged in the claim, for instance, a car Are they in the contract? Is that contract still valid, active, and so on? A series of questions with, if you have a negative answer to them, you will conclude not to handle the claim at all. Then when you accept to handle the claim, there are a number of things that you have to do. First of all, there is acceptance, which means that you will analyze the claim, look at all the objects that have been involved in the claim, that have been damaged or lost or whatever, and also the circumstances in which that happened, to see what was the cause of the claim peril, and the circumstances about that, in order to see whether the claim can really be accepted and whether all of the losses or damages that are involved in that claim, and that can be a whole lot, can all be accepted. Once you have that, then comes the next stage, in fact, in handling a claim for each of the objects, is determining how are we going to compensate. Compensating can be paying, but can also be replacing or repairing certain objects. And it's important, obviously, to get to an agreement about that with all parties involved. And then the next thing is then effectively delivering the compensation, so paying, repairing, replacing, sometimes also delivering assistance services while you are handling the claim. And obviously, if a claim or the responsibility for the claim or the liability for the claim lies with another party, recovery will be also a part of the claim handling. And then finally, when everything is done, you need to do some closing, which is usually a series of accounting and administrative tasks that you have to do. And the environment in which you end up when you handle a claim is an environment in which a lot of different parties can play a role. Obviously, the insurance company, but also the insurance companies of third parties or of counterparties, surveyors that have to assess how much compensation is needed for certain losses and damages, assistance companies of whatever type, the authorities, the police, for instance, that can also have played a role in seeing what happened, legal assistance, repair companies, etc., etc. And all of that needs to be orchestrated. So what's important here also is to see that every insurance claim that you have, even of the same type, they all have their own story and they all have their own storybook. All kinds of events can emerge at whatever moment, and they can have an impact on how you will handle the claim, or they can also contradict what you have perhaps already decided before, but given new information, it sheds new light on things, and you have to review that. So it can be that you have to return to decisions again. And also, if we look at duration of a claim, in the most simple cases, it's a matter of a few minutes. For instance, if you have a travel insurance claim, you lost your luggage, you just hand in a form on the internet with all the data, and if everything goes well, within a few minutes, you even have money on your account. But claims can also be very complex. For instance, a severe car accident can lead to bodily damage or injuries to a number of persons. They can end up invalid or they can have invalidity caused by the claim peril, and then it can sometimes even take decades before a claim is really handled fully. And in the course of the claim, there is a part that we can automate, but there is a huge part that we cannot automate. So humans also have to intervene, human agents, AI agents, system agents, and that all needs to be orchestrated in a good way. And the way to do that is to put decision logic at the center of the claim handling in order to be adaptive and flexible as soon as a new situation arises, assess what is the status of the claim, what should be done next, etc. And all of that I put in my framework. So the journey I'm going to take you through today is a journey in which I'm going to play the role of a business logic developer using the standards we all know, DMN, CMMN, BPMN, and also the latest standard, or one of the latest standards that have joined this group, which is SDMN, the shared data model and notation. And with all of these models, I have been building, in fact, a complete end-to-end solution, a backbone for implementation. The only thing, in fact, that is not part of that framework is the user interface with which customers or users will be confronted when they hand in a claim or when they have to handle specific tasks in the framework of a claim. So that is certainly something that needs to be done by traditional IT development. And the other thing that needs to be done is at the back end, data integration, data storage, and data archiving, etc. But as soon as I have my models built, I can test them, I can simulate them, I can make sure that everything works appropriately. Then I deploy it to the IT environment where IT can pick it up and add all of these things. And we're done. And in fact, when I realized, because I had first developed an approach, a structured approach, a method to do so. And when I finalized it and saw that it all works out very well, and that also brings to light the power of these standards that we have here. In fact, what you create is some kind of an ERP system, but very flexible, very fast, very adaptive, etc. So not the ERPs that we know from the past, but a kind of ERP 4.0. And you can implement this alongside existing ERPs, or you can use it to build your own ERP solution. So now I'm going to switch to my modeling environment. And I'm going to show you how this all works and how this is all structured. So what you're seeing right now is the life cycle is a CMMN model, so a case management model that depicts the full end-to-end life cycle of an insurance claim handling. Yeah. And for me, that is also the essence of using CMMN. For me, CMMN is in fact, or supports a full life cycle of, in this case, an insurance claim. But at a higher level, for instance, you could also have a CMMN model that handles the full life cycle of an insurance contract. And if you're going one step up, you could also have a CMMN model depicting the complete life cycle of an insurance customer, including onboarding, terminating the relationship with the customer, and everything that can happen in between. And in fact, if you see it like that, you see that you can build up, in fact, a complete set of models that supports your full business end-to-end. But okay, now we're going to focus on insurance claim handling. And what you see here is a kind of spider structure in which there is one thing that is central, and that is a decision model. The decision model will assess whenever something happens with the claim information. It will do a full assessment of where we are with the claim. It will do a 360-degree analysis of everything related to the claim. And we'll then decide based upon that what actions need to take place. Yeah? And if everything would go straight through, then we wouldn't need to go into all of these different parts here. But as soon as, for instance, an insurance claim comes in, there is an assessment, and the DMN engine says, oh, I'm not sure about the eligibility based on the data that I have at hand, then it will enable a stage in my CMMN model called eligibility. And then we will go into that stage, and then it will perhaps launch based on, and I'm going to explain it later, based on a requirement, will launch, for instance, a process, a BPMN process that will be executed and in which a user or a claim handler will receive a task to, for instance, link the claim and a claim object like a car to a valid insurance contract. And as soon as that is done, okay, then that is new information for at this level, and will so the insurance claim data is updated, and the decision model will then assess, okay, we now know that the eligibility issue has been solved, and now we are going to, for instance, get into another stage or in multiple stages whatsoever. So if we look at this, it's important to understand, okay, what is in fact behind that decision model. And I'm going to get into that model. Yeah, I'm going to put this a little bit aside. And what you see here is I have one decision model that will all the time be used whenever something changes in the claim, and that will assess the incoming insurance claim. What you see here, by the way, is the input node for my decision model is the same as this document in my case model. And here I'm going to show you a little bit. So one of the first things I did, obviously, is defining some concepts that I need in the framework of insurance and insurance claim handling. So in fact, what we have here is a link to all the documentation about all of these objects. So what is an insurance claim? What is insurance claim eligibility, etc. But what you see here also, there is also a link to a data structure. And if we look at that data structure, we see that we have, this is the data structure of my insurance claim. And it is a full definition of all the data and a structure of all the data that is involved in an insurance claim. So at whenever there is a change in the insurance claim data, this data set will be given as an input to the decision model at a certain point in time. And it will provide all the input data, and I'm going to dive into it immediately. So everything that's yellow here is everything we know about the claim, yeah, about the person handing in the claim, about the peril, so the incident that happened, about the claim statement that has been filled out by one or more parties, about the insurance type, about the insurance contract and all the information about that, and about, for instance, the claim objects, so all the objects involved in the claim. So suppose that I have a car accident, I ran into another car. So these are two objects. Suppose that I also injured some persons in the other car, then all of these injured persons are also objects in the claim, and so on and so on. And based on that information that we have, and that we will not have 100% at the start of the claim, but it will be gradually built up, the DMN engine will decide what we can already conclude and what is still missing in terms of decisions that have to be taken and things that have to be done with the claim. So if I'm going to look at here, for instance, if I look at the peril, you see I can extend that. And for instance, for the peril, I have a full data definition of, okay, what kind of perils do we have? It can be a theft, a loss, a collision between cars, etc. When did it happen? Where did it happen? In which country? What is the status of that peril? That means, is it an accepted view on the situation, or is there a dispute about what happened? And also, what if there is a collision, what are the circumstances of that? Yeah, that is one thing that we can see here. On the other hand, the decision model will take some decisions, and that will end up also in information about eligibility, for instance, where we see, okay, the status of that can be eligible, not eligible, etc. The status has been reached at that point in time. The handling status of it is active, it is enabled, it is completed, and there will be some explanation about what happened. You will see that right away. So let's continue with our decision model. So what you see here is the DMN engine, in this case, will assess all the different relevant domains or subjects that need to be handled within the handling of the claim. So what is the situation about eligibility? How are we doing with the acceptance of all the objects involved? How are we doing with determining how much we will compensate for each object? What about delivering the payments, the repairs, etc., the recovery, and the closing? Let's perhaps have a look at eligibility. So behind all of these different decision nodes, I have a decision service. And if we talk about eligibility, in fact, this is what needs to happen. So again, I'm always passing the same complete document with all data from one layer to the other. So if we talk about eligibility, what is important in terms of claim handling, that is, I need to find a contract that is valid. I need to find a contract for the claimant that handed in the claim. I need to assess whether that contract is valid, also for the type of claim that is on hand here. I need to see whether the object that is involved in the claim, so our customer's object in the claim, is in the contract. So if it is a car accident, we will see whether the car is in the contract, etc. If we're talking about travel insurance, it can be, suppose we're traveling with 4 people. Are all of these 4 people in the contract, yes or no? Because that will determine whether the insurance company will do something. And also the coverage period needs to be valid. Yeah? And if we look at that, behind this, as we all know, there are, we use a lot of decision tables in DMN. So I'm going to assess here based on the information that I get in. So if we have haven't found a contract yet, we can't yet decide anything about the coverage period. But if we have found a contract, then we will take the claim peril date, look whether it is in between the start and end date of the coverage. And if that is the case, it is valid. And if not, it is not valid. So quite simple. And if it is not valid, we probably also want to explain why it is not valid. So here I've got an explanation that I could use in the user interface, for instance, where I say, okay, it's not valid because it is outside the insurance coverage period. And here I have the details why it is that way. So here I find the claim peril date, the start date, and the end date of the coverage. And if I have this, together with this, I can fully explain why this insurance claim is not covered. As soon as I have modeled this, I can, and that is always important in this kind of environment, certainly with DMN, I can immediately test it. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do here is, yeah, I could fill in this form, but that is a lot of data, obviously. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick up a JSON document with a specific scenario. So where there is a coverage period check that will lead to no, it's not within the coverage period. So I'm going to load that and I'm going to submit it. And yeah, the nice thing when you are modeling is if everything turns green, you know that your logic is working. That is fine. But you can also immediately see what is the outcome of the eligibility check. And we immediately see here in the reason list outside insurance coverage period. In fact, what we see here below is there are 4 different checks, these ones. And for each of them, we've got a status. So here we found a contract, it is identified, this is the contract, etc. It has a contract start date, an end date, etc. The contract is valid. The object in the contract is my car, so it has been identified, it is a vehicle. And the coverage period validity is not valid because it is outside the insurance coverage period. And here you have the details. So the incident took place on the 10th of April 2025, and we see that the coverage period ended on the 28th of February. Yeah. What is also nice here is that you can immediately also dive into the logic that we just saw and see here, for instance, I'm going to return. So we have an identified contract. So this row has been hit. That led to not valid. Due to the fact that this is not valid, the status is not valid, I get this reason. And I've got these details that come out of this list that I have here. So this is already quite nice because now I know that the logic that I have implemented works and also works correctly. So I can be reassured of that. And I do that for all of these underlying decisions. Then I can also test it at this level. Yeah. And I'm going to take another scenario, a happy flow scenario, let's say, that brings us immediately rather far in the handling of the claim. So we're going to test this one, and I'm going to pick another scenario, just a scenario in which everything is rather clear. And we submit that also. And then what we see here is a complete document that gives an overview of all the inputs that were at the base of this decision. So we see the claim ID, we see when the claim happened, all the information about the claimant, all the information about the peril. So there was a collision here nearby. I had an accident. I was circulating on a roundabout and someone else was leaving a parking place. There is an insurance claim statement. Both parties agree what happened and also the circumstances. We found a contract. So here I've got all the information about the contract, about the insurance taker, etc., about what objects are in the contract. So here I find my car, I find also the coverages list, I find the start and end date of the coverage, period, etc. Then I get to the claim information. So obviously my car was involved, and the coverage that will be used for handling this claim is the all risk coverage. And on the other hand, there is the car of the counterparty, and there the coverage is property damage liability. And so these are all the input data. And here under here, I see the assessment by the decision engine of the claim based on all the input data that we just saw. So based on all that input data, the engine has seen, okay, this is a claim that is eligible. And based on the data, we don't have to do anything anymore. So the handling status is complete. And we find here all the overview of everything that's related to eligibility. The same thing goes for acceptance. So also the decision engine has determined the claim is accepted as such. We don't have to do anything anymore. And also here I get all the information about the collision, etc. And also, for instance, a liability status here on the counterparty, that the counterparty is liable for this accident. These are the different objects involved, etc. We have also the compensation determination has also been done immediately because we had the costs that were involved, and so on and so on. So, and the next thing, in fact, is that compensation is in progress. So based on this assessment, if we go back here to our CMMN model, what will happen in the last scenario that I passed through the DMN engine, it will say, okay, all of these things are okay, but we need to enable this stage to really carry through the compensation delivery for this claim. Okay. So, and that brings us back from the decision engine to the functioning of the case and the processes behind it. So what I'm going to, so what will happen, and that's a scenario that I will show in execution in the case management engine. That is the scenario that we had about the coverage period check that led to the not valid coverage. Well, that will go through this decision engine. And what happens then is, if we look at the if part here of the entry criterion of that stage, it says, okay, we're going to enable that stage when the handling status gets the value enabled. Okay? Then we will get into the stage. And then here, for instance, this process will be enabled if we have missing information about the eligibility. And then we go into the BPMN process, and there is a task, and that task will be given to a claim handler who needs to do something. Yeah? So that is, in fact, the way it is done. So what I've done here is, in fact, setting up an end-to-end handling logic based on primarily our decision model. And that decision model is really the control tower of everything that happens within the claim at every moment. So whenever new information comes in, the decision model will always decide, okay, what are we doing right now in the claim? Is it still necessary? Yes or no? If not, it will be terminated. And now we need to do this. So then we go into that. And so the decision model will continuously orchestrate what happens for each claim, at what point in time, by whom, in what stage, etc. So that is fully in the hands of that decision model. So what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to show the entire thing because that could overwhelm us with a lot of details. What I'm going to do now is I strip down my model, my case model to something simpler, but it will run the same DMN model. And I'm going to show what happens in the case of that coverage issue that plays. So here you see, in fact, a stripped version of the model that we see here. So it is practically the same. And so what will happen is I'm going to execute that model. I'm going to deploy it first to the environment I'm working in. So here. And now what you are going to see is without any user interface, without any data management in the backend, you will see how this case handling moves forward. So what I could do, obviously, is just like with the DMN model, that I would enter a form and do the input of all the data. I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same scenario that we had with the coverage period check. So it's identical. And it's also the same DMN that will be run. So what happens now is I'm going to submit this. And what is now happening is that there is our decision task, insurance claim assessment. So this one, so this has come in. And now this task needs to be executed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute it. Up. And we can see also the result of the decision engine. So what I've shown you earlier in terms of results of the DMN, we see it here in a slightly different form. But what's important here is that we can see the evaluation of the eligibility, where we see two things. On the one hand, the handling status has been set by the decision engine to enabled. That means that something needs to happen by an agent. It can be a human agent or an AI agent or whomever in terms of eligibility. And then the second level, the second thing you see here is missing information. And that will trigger, once we're in the stage of eligibility, it will trigger the business process to handle, in fact, that missing information item about coverage. Okay. So what will be done now is we are going, in fact, the stage has been, the eligibility stage has been enabled by the CMMN model. And what we see is now that this process is kicked off. Identify insurance contract. So that is, so in fact, that is, this process will be kicked off. Right. And if I kick off that process, so that all happens at the back end, obviously, of the engine, then this task will be, if we have a user interface, would become available in the task list of a claim handler. And if we click on that task, we see a form here. Suppose that this would be the user interface of the claim handler. Usually you will aim for something more user-friendly, but okay, it is what it is. I see here that the insured object, and that was a problem, had a coverage end date string or a coverage end date of February. Suppose that there was a backlog in administration and the claim handler has done some research and he has said, no, in fact, now the contract had been extended to December 2025, and we will also reflect that here. So we do that. And in fact, this changes, in fact, the inputs. And then we will say, the claim handler will say, okay, it's not longer missing information, it is eligible. And I'm going to confirm that. So this is typically something that comes back from a user interface, from an application that is facing an end user. So I'm going to submit that. And once that is submitted, in fact, what happens is that we get back to our starting point, and the insurance claim assessment will need to be executed because the information changed here. And that is also what's going to happen. So I'm going to run the engine again. And then we will see what is the result. So what you see here is the engine has confirmed the eligibility status, and it has also confirmed that the handling status is now completed. That means that the eligibility part of the claim handling has been successfully completed. And in fact, what you have then is, okay, this has been completed, and then we get to the other things. So this is just to show you how this can all work nicely together. I haven't done any IT development here. It's just I used the CMMN, DMN, BPMN functionalities together also with the SDMN to model my data. And in fact, that brought me to a fully working end-to-end solution for claim handling. The only thing that needs to be added, obviously, is on the front end, at the front end, a GUI, a user interface, at the back end, some data integration, and we're done. To give you an idea, it took me about 10 days to build this from scratch. So now I know quite well what claim handling is about, so I didn't have to go into an insurance company and talk to people to know what it is about and how it works. But you see, this can be really done in a very short time. And I think that is a quantum leap forward if we compare that to traditional development of this kind of systems. So if we wrap it up, perhaps. So in the slides that you will see also screenshots of or copies of the different models that we saw. So in order to wrap it up, what have we done? We have adopted, in fact, a decision-centric approach that translates, in fact, a business strategy and policies and regulations and process requirements, etc., into a working system based on DMN, CMMN, and BPMN, the total business architecture framework. And the good thing about it is a modeled environment, so it's also easily adaptable in all ways. The process logic, the case logic, the decision logic that's being used, also the data structures that are being used, etc. They can be extended, changed, etc., with full governance also behind it. And yeah, I think this this can be applied not only to insurance claim handling, it can be applied to whatever kind of customer service that you operationally have to support in your environment. So that's about the end of what I wanted to share with you, and I will be happy to respond or to whatever questions that you have.
Thank you, Stefan. Questions, please?
Hi, Stefan. I've done quite a bit of work in claims handling myself.
Yeah.
So I sympathise with you, including medical claims handling and authorization for health insurance, which is horrifically complicated.
Yes.
When I was doing that work, I didn't have access to CMMN, but I used a very similar architecture to yours in that there's a central decision service that you call repeatedly that kicks off various sub-processes as necessary. What I found interesting was that when trying to explain or discuss with the customer how this system worked, they were very accustomed to the idea of a linear process with steps that they go through, and they found it quite difficult sometimes to come to terms with this spider-like diagram with the decision service in the middle and all things satelliting around it. What did you find there? Did the users approve of your design? Did they understand the way it worked?
Yes, they do, because they also faced before, whenever they did other types of automation of claim handling, it was difficult to find an automation that really took into account all these unpredictable events that can happen and that bring you back in your claim handling. And it's always difficult to do that. And using this approach, they can see, obviously you have to educate them a bit about what are events and how does that work, etc. That is obviously something you have to do because it's new to most of the customers, but it was also new to me in the beginning. So the way it is working, but once they make that click, it brings them immediately also to a whole set of new ideas. Oh yeah, then we can also add that and that and that to this framework, because it's not only about the processes that are being handled within an insurance company, it's also the processes that need to go out to other involved parties like repair companies or surveyors or whatever. And you can orchestrate all of that from this spider-like approach that and then responds to everything that pops up. Yeah. So so I think it is a major step forward compared to having to do it with sequence-driven processes that you kick off all the time. And sometimes it's good to have these BPMN processes, because sometimes, like I showed, you have a very specific task for someone or for a department to do that consists of perhaps different steps, and perhaps also you need to reach out to your customer to get information in, and once that comes in, then you can pick it up again, etc. And for that, BPMN processes are really very well equipped. But you need some orchestration from a life cycle point of view above that to make it all work and to orchestrate it. And there, I also switched from, you have decision-aware processes or case logic, and then you have your logic scattered around in all types of decision models, and then it's difficult to keep that consistency. And also, if you have to change it and to make changes, to the content of it, it's really very risky because you cannot test it in a good way. Whereas I put it all in one coherent and consistent DMN engine, consisting obviously of different layers. And that allows me also to do very easily non-regression tests on all the aspects. And that is also a powerful thing. So it's not only about the execution, but it's also about how do you manage this kind of architecture. And it's something traditional IT development always struggles with. And it's sometimes also a black box, and then you see accidents happening, etc. So I find it really a very pleasant way, in fact, to do this kind of it's not only automation, but also to orchestrate what type of agent needs to do what at what point in time. Yeah? Human agents, AI agents, other system agents, and what can you do straight through, etc. It's all orchestrated by that one decision engine, in fact.
Right.
Okay, more questions, please. I'm not a huge fan of generative AI, but I cannot help asking question from this claim handling perspective and this particular system what you already built just in 10 days. I understand it's not production level, it's not for customer, it's just more like exercise. But where do you see that you would need help, or would you appreciate help from generative AI?
Yeah, it could perhaps to explain the outcomes of everything, because it generates a lot of data in terms of all the conclusions and all decisions that need to be taken at all levels. There, I think generative, but I didn't try it out yet. It would be very interesting to put the output of that decision engine towards generative AI to explain what is the outcome in natural language. There it could help quite a lot, I think. It could also help quite a lot in all of these different tasks that you put away. But I must say I haven't practiced that yet. So, but I see quite some possibilities there.
Okay, good. Okay, if you don't have more questions, thank you very much, Stefan, and we will move forward.
Okay.